2020 COVID-19 Emergency Response Project in Mindanao Island, Philippines. Hello everyone, I am Sun Jung-in from World Vision. I would like to talk about the COVID-19 Emergency Response Project in Mindanao Island, the Philippines. There are 4 questions that I would like to pose and answer the questions along the way. First is why we had to support this project and what we supported. What change we anticipated, and what was the differentiation of this program versus other projects. As you're very well aware, most of the Filipinos are Catholics. Throughout the colonial years of Spain, we've seen a conversion into Catholic, and most of the Muslims live in the south. 5% of the population are Muslims, that amount to 5 million people, and in the southern area, there are about 1 million people living. In 2017, the Maute, who were the rebel forces, occupied Marawi city, and due to this, the government forces had to go in, and for 60 days, they proclaimed martial law. The rebel forces and the government forces for 5 months were in conflict, and more than 1,000 people died, 353,000 people were displaced. As you can see here in the picture, after the conflict and war, the city was destroyed, and even now it's been 3 years, but already 25,000 citizens are displaced, and they are currently in temporary households and temporary shelters. The very first confirmed case was on January 30th in the Philippines, and from March we've seen it spread across the community. And it was March when we first started to plan this project. In Lilanatulo area, it was designated as a mid-risk zone. So the Marawi citizens also had that experience of this conflict and war, but in addition to that, they have so many vulnerabilities. They were isolated, there were social vulnerabilities, and the healthcare vulnerabilities also existed, and COVID-19 has amplified all of these vulnerabilities. So let us now go into what we did about the situation. Based on KOICA's financing for 6 months, we had 400 million won, and we have been targeting 15,000 households. We provided hygiene kits as well as provided emergency disaster relief funds for the households. With regard to the hygiene kits, depending on their vulnerability, we had 13 barangays that we selected, and 7,900 households were designated as beneficiaries. 1 hygiene kit was provided per household, and the items in the hygiene kit included soap, facial masks, as well as toothpaste and toothbrushes. When we distribute the hygiene kits, we also provided educational materials on COVID-19. And if they had any feedback or comments, there was also a hotline that they can utilize, which was indicated in the brochure. It was in this orange bag, the hygiene kits, when it was distributed to the households, and you can also see the children. Next is on the relief fund. Of course, you may not be familiar to this program of offering cash, but in a disaster situation, distributing cash is probably the most effective way. In order to provide cash transfers, you need the right system in place, and I will not go into the specifics on that right now. But in the case of Marawi, it was a conflicted area, and with the second wave of disaster or the cash transfer can carry on a different meaning. So let me go further into that. So there are 4 conditions where cash transfer was possible. This area was about an hour away from Iligan, where there's a lot of trade ongoing. So it was possible to seek materials. And World Vision had a very long partnership with Mindanao government. Therefore, the processes for this cash transfer was not that difficult. The financial institutions, of course, play a key role. They need expertise and they have to be professional. And when we do have such institutions, of course, this cash transfer can be done in a better fashion. Because they have a recent conflict experience, there were certain troubles or struggles. However, the new government, I think, did play a relatively satisfactory role. So we thought that it was safe enough to engage in this cash transfer. And not only that, it was also about upholding their rights and their freedom. This is also about human dignity when we provide disaster relief funds. In terms of how we provided the cash transfer, First, we had to select the beneficiaries, and we had the LMMS, so where it had to do with registering the beneficiaries. This is a mobile app that enabled us to do that, and we had to select the financial institutions. In Korea, when we receive disaster relief funds, you can use credit cards or debit cards. In the same vein, the financial institution was the intermediary between the beneficiary and World Vision. And what we do is enable those that are registered to receive the cash. So this list is provided to the institution, and the transactional code will be sent to the beneficiaries. And then through the LMMS card and their transactional codes, they can come to this cash transfer locations to seek their cash relief fund. This is using the barcode to record the fact that they received the funding. When the resurgence was quite serious, it was of course important to get the cash transfer, but also of course high quarantine measures need to be strictly abided. So you can see that social distancing was in place when they were queuing.
Lives across the world. No one has been exempted from the risk of catching the deadly virus. Millions of households, especially the aged family members, the sickly and the strong, the children, have become the most vulnerable and at risk. Many breadwinners, from the formal workers to the daily wage earners, have faced the fear of not just losing their lives, but also losing their livelihood to meet the basic needs of their families. The future has become a blur for school-aged children whose education has been disrupted and still challenged in terms of readiness, resources, and resilience to continue learning. In the midst of despair and uncertainty, this crisis has still brought out the good, if not the best, in caring people. In the Philippines, World Vision has seen how partners from different walks of life and backgrounds, from behind the scenes, the front lines, and even online, people have come together to respond to the need of the hour. In the last 6 months, World Vision, with the help of generous donors, volunteers, and various groups from the business community, schools, the media, and the arts, and even children themselves, have reached over 5 million people affected by this pandemic. Thousands of families at risk in the poor areas received hygiene and sanitation kits to protect them and prevent the spread of the virus. In coordination with the government, World Vision also provided support to strengthen the health systems and the health workers in the front lines in the hospitals and rural health units nationwide. For children and families impacted by COVID-19, support also came for their education, child protection, food security, and livelihood interventions. All these would not have been possible without your generous support and partnership. In the way forward, challenges remain as more families continue to suffer the brunt of this lingering crisis. Together, we can rise above this challenge. Together, we can win as one humanity. Together, we can heal as one.
Under such a situation, let me now go into what kind of changes we anticipated. So this is on our monitoring scheme. We wanted to understand the changes in circumstances of our beneficiaries. So we conducted a monitoring and survey on the households. It's currently underway on the field. And let me now give you an overview on the plan. It was for 3,360 households, which was 30% of the beneficiaries. 25 surveyors will be monitoring based on 12 modules, and the modules have separate themes. And let me just focus on the key modules. The themes, of course, have some details to it. In the case of the key modules, there's also the response as well as short-term results. For instance, if it was on preventative measures or knowledge on COVID-19, we would look into whether they acquired that information and whether they received the brochures on the COVID-19 quarantine measures. And we also looked into whether they have knowledge on how they can be inflicted with the virus. Module 8 and 9 is closely related to our core project. Let me first look into Module 9. It's on food security and livelihoods. This has to do with the cash transfer. It has to do with the performance of the cash transfer particularly. And so we would look into the satisfaction rate and also the way of cash transfer, whether it was done appropriately, and we also check the actual amount. 1,000 pesos, in other words, $20 were to be provided to the households, but World Vision wasn't aware that there may be illegal commissions in between, so we wanted to check that as well. As the short-term results, we wanted to understand how they used this relief fund, and we went into the details of whether it increased their food consumption, did they improve their dietary needs, or did it actually have them relieve any educational expenses. Not only that, we checked whether food security was better. This was on the number of meals they have per day. This was in a humanitarian crisis situation. Therefore, protection and do no harm principle is key. In other words, in selecting the beneficiaries and throughout the distribution, it's important that there are no bribes along the process. Not only that, the employees of World Vision and any organizers, was there any harassment or any violence? And was there any conflicts in the process within the local community and household was also something that needed to be assessed. As mentioned, the survey is underway, and when the outcome does come out, we would like to share that with you as well. Last but not least, what is the differentiating point of this project? First of all, is that we had a reliable partner and we engaged in this partnership with them. Philippines World Vision and the Mindanao region had a very long history under its belt, and during the Marawi dispute, they immediately offered humanitarian support and aid. And after the conflict, many of the institutions, when they left Marawi, they remained with the local residents to have, and they were able to become trusted by the government and the citizens. Therefore, even under this humanitarian crisis, once again with COVID-19, they were able to be to have a cool mind to involve themselves in this project. Not only that, you can see that the Philippines for the past 5 years had typhoons, 16 typhoons, including Haiyan, and they were very much they had this preparedness team in place, so they had the system. Not only that, they had 250 members in the NDMT, National Disaster Management Team. They, of course, are a part of World Vision. Of course, they have their day job, but when there is an emergency, they are the team members that are trained to respond to crises in the front line. And the second, I would like to talk about the fact that we utilize the validated framework in response to the crisis. There are triggers that will amplify the crisis or the threat. So we had trigger indicators that we set forth, and we monitored these indicators. And this, of course, enabled us to make timely decisions. Government guidelines and our trigger indicators internally, and also the information with the Mindanao team has enabled us to make quick decisions. And through flexible module utilization, we were able to make the right choice. When I say mode here, it's survive, recovery, and build a future mode. We first started off with the survive mode. So depending on the mode, follow measures and any additional assistance will be decided. And the third is that we utilize the digital platform. We were able to enhance our efficiency in the process. The LMMS is the service that enables us to register beneficiaries and track the services. We register them into the mobile system and we provide them with an ID card. World Vision, whenever we offer a service, through this ID card, we can check whether they received the services, and this LMMS will be keeping track of all of this data. Real time, we can understand the progress of the project, and depending on the objective or goal, we can also extract reports from this platform. Not only that, due to COVID-19, it's important to be untacked, and it helped us reduce the time that needs to be spent in person. And last but not least, on the principle on do no harm and how we applied the complex conflict-related principles. In other words, continuous channels with the beneficiaries was key. That's why we had a hotline. And even after the distribution, and in the process of monitoring, we will, of course, conduct a do no harm principle assessment as well. An integrated approach was also looked into. There are areas where conflicts cannot be resolved just with the cash transfer, so we utilized our own internal budget to enhance peace and protect children, and we wanted to contribute to relieving the conflicts within the local community. So that is all for my presentation. Thank you very much.
네, 월드비전의
Yes, Ms. Sun Jung-un from World Vision, thank you very much for your presentation. You talked about the COVID-19 Emergency Response Project in Mindanao Island in the Philippines. Let us now move on. We have Good Neighbors. We have Lee Jae-young from Good Neighbors International, from the International Cooperation Division and the Healthcare team, and he will be giving a presentation on Good Neighbors Community Development and Healthcare Projects. Very nice to meet you all. I am Lee Jae-young. I'm in charge of the International Healthcare team of the International Business Division. I have a lot to share, so let me go right into my presentation. First, I would like to talk about the Global Disease Eradication Fund. Right now, due to COVID-19, we cannot go on business trips, we cannot engage in any travel. But when we do buy a business ticket, all of the international flights have 1,001 added to it. What is that? Well, this fund goes into the Disease Eradication Fund, a fund that's run by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and COICA. We want to engage in activities to eradicate diseases all over the world, and these funds were also quite handy in the following project that I would like to share with you. But before I go into my presentation, let me first talk about the vicious cycle of poverty. Poverty and health. Why are the two intertwined? If you are poor, of course, there are many lost opportunities. You lose the opportunity to get educated, for instance. And when you do lose that opportunity, what happens to that child? It's highly likely that that person will be illiterate. And this child will have to go and just engage in physical labor to bring bread to the table. And such environments, in many cases, are risky and dangerous. You may lead to amputation, respiratory illnesses, as well as skin illnesses or diseases. They are exposed to various health crises. And when they do get sick, they'll have to pay high costs for their health care. And because they cannot work, of course, it would be about loss of income as well as loss of labor. So once again, there's this vicious cycle of poverty that goes with poverty as well and health. So former Secretary General Kofi Annan has said that poverty is something that needs to be eradicated to enhance health. Not only that, in the MDGs and the SDGs, it indicates that the two are closely linked and intertwined. Next, I would like to talk about the project. This project was with Tanzania. It was about enhancing maternal health as well as utilizing the local healthcare workforce. We in the Shinyanga region, Kishafu district, conducted this project. It was a 5.6 billion won project. And in the case of the key areas, well, I will go in detail as I move throughout my the slides. As you can see here, this is Tanzania, a picture, a map, and the Shinyanga region. And within this region, there is the Kishapu district. It's slightly over 4,000 square kilometers in terms of the area. It's about 7 times that of Seoul. It seems very small on this map. However, it's bigger than Seoul by 6 times. And every year, newborns amount to 10,000. In 2018, in Gangwon-do, only 9,000 babies were born. So you can see that it's a bit more or less similar to that of Gangwon-do province. We wanted to support medical facilities. That was one arm of this project, and also support the healthcare professionals. And we also wanted to mobilize the local community members. What I mean by number 3 has to do with putting together the CHW, or the healthcare workers of the community, and also enhance the awareness of the community by utilizing photo voice. And it also had to do with putting together a committee under the name of HFGC. This is the key question to my presentation. So can we really do mobilize local community members, and can that actually enhance maternal health? So I think that you need to keep this question in mind as you listen to my presentation. So first is on the CHW. Can you read this Chinese character? I'm not sure whether you can. So let me give you an example. This is the picture that will offer you with the in Korea. Korean it means chokgateuseeng. In other words, it means red feet. Red feet means barefoot doctor. Why are they barefoot? It's because they're actually originally farmers. And if you see this picture, we do have a farmer. And this movement first started in China. In the past, they did not have enough doctors, but most of the doctors resided in the city areas. So in the remote areas, in the countryside, they did not have any doctors. So the community members, the residents, basically the farmers, were selected. And they went through basic training. And then what they did was offer these basic healthcare services. So this was the focus of this community health worker type of group, or CHW. So what kind of work do they do? If you look at this first picture, they have a bag and they also have a water bottle, and they're going to somebody's home. They're paying home visits where they see antepartum women about to give birth. So when they do see pregnant women, they also register them in the facility's log. They also provide healthcare related education and training and awareness raising activities. And if we have newborns or children, as you can see in this picture, they also manage their data. CHW, or Community Health Workers, not something that Good Neighbors International established. It was something that existed already, starting from the Barefoot Doctors of China. This movement has continued on. We do not select the CHWs, or the health workers of the community. In the communities, they select their CHWs, and the training, of course, is not done directly by Good Neighbors. As you can see here, there's this educational process where what we do is nurture the trainers. We engage in the training of the trainers, and the trainers, of course, train the supervisors, and the trainers train the CHWs. So even after Good Neighbors goes back or leaves the region, there is this ecosystem where you can have a chain of talents. Not only that, assessment and monitoring is also done by the community health workers or the local residents. We want to make it as participatory as possible. So here we have we put together a 48 healthcare committee, and this committee deals with 8 CHWs. In other words, one CHWs visit 26 households based on the stats. So let us now look into what kind of changes were foreseen in the villages. The first case story is a pregnant lady, and she already had many babies, and she gave birth at home, but the CHWs wanted to make sure that she was provided with the right services. So if they found out that her uterus, there was a fraction in uterus, so say hysterectomy was understood and identified, and she went through a C-section, and it was quite safe. And here you can see that somebody was knocking on their door. It was at night, and it was about an urgent situation where a lady had to give birth. So this was a case where this person helped the person give birth. And this is a picture of a nurse. Our CHWs, when the women are pregnant, they know danger signs, they know symptoms. It's really important to understand that. So you can see that this information was offered as well, not only individually, but in the case of the project, you can see that there were some key significant changes. WHO, in order to reduce maternal deaths, are focusing on 3 points. First is the antenatal care in pregnancy, and second is after giving birth, care and support in weeks after childbirth, and third is that all births are attended by skilled health professionals in the right facilities. And as you can see here, you see the baseline and the end line. This is the information on that. So the 12 weeks of antenatal care, it was increased by 31% to 92%, and also 4 times of antenatal care. And the percentage of births attended by skilled health professionals and the care and support in weeks after the childbirth are indicated here, and all of it increased. Next is on the photo voice activity. The process of photo voice is quite simple. First, we select the community members and we give them cameras. And then we tell them how they can use it. And every week we will give them a theme or a topic. Is there anything that would hurt the healthcare situation of your community, or anything that a pregnant woman should avoid? So every week, the residents will go out to take pictures. So the pictures will be gathered together, and they will be talking about why they took this picture, and they go into the reasons behind that. And then there will be this discussion amongst the residents. And in the process, they can understand the risk factors and also talk about how they can resolve that. They can find the solutions for themselves. For instance, this is a picture that was taken through the photo voice program. Here we have a mom, a child next to her, and you can see that she's pregnant, and she has some tools on her shoulders. So this was under the topic of what should pregnant women avoid. So she's pregnant and she has a child to take care of, but she's also engaging in harsh physical labor. Another picture here is you see a mom with the baby on her back, and she is currently pounding this flour. But what are the men doing? They're just playing games. In the past, there was a lack of awareness of the situation, but now the residents understand that this is not something that should continue. But we also have some positive pictures, not only negative pictures. Here in the household, we see the dad. What kind of role should the dad play? How should he support the mom? And especially if your wife is pregnant, it's also about how antenatal care should be provided and how he should take his wife to the hospital. Through the photo voice activity, we wanted to check what kind of changes it brought about. And if you look at this slide, it indicates that taking the pregnant women to the hospital by using motorbikes, for instance, now is common sense now based on these awareness activities. And last but not least, I would like to talk about the HFGC. There is an educational committee in the school, and of course the community will be needing a similar committee. This indicates the assessment and the activities and the evaluation. So once again, Good Neighbors is not directly involved in this. We just provide support, and it's all done by the community residents. And the role of HFGC is, as indicated in red, is to provide help for pregnant women and also those after childbirth, and also provides assistance for the newborns. This is in a slightly different vein. Through the HFGC, as we were looking into many examples, there was this village that I visited, and I want to share this with you. As I've already mentioned, they're in the Kishaf region, Ijikilu village. These are the CHWs. And when I went there, they were engaging in some construction. They were moving, they were stacking bricks, and I asked them what you were doing. And they were saying that the health clinics were so far away, and it was very difficult for the pregnant women to go there. So they wanted to they asked the government to build another health center, but they said that they lacked the financing to do that. So with the local residents, the HFGC, this committee was building a health center for themselves. And not only that, they were cooperating with the government, where once they do have the building in place, the government said that they'll be providing the medical equipment and facilities. So all of that was already set forth, and they were building this health center for the community. And what's more amazing is that in the village, in order to bring about change, they also devised their own village law. So let's say if you give childbirth at home, you would be suspect to a penalty. And we have midwives, or who we call traditional birth attendants, and if they help them give birth to a child at home, also they'll be charged with a penalty. And if you do not get the right antenatal care, then also another penalty. So they put in place these policies to find a way to enhance maternal health within the village. So not only in this village, but the other villages also were able to find the benefits of these programs. So what's happening is in the Shinyanga region, in the Kishapu district already the laws were passed. So in the Kishapu district villages, every one of the villages now have this policy in place, and there's a consensus. And now it's moving and it's expanding across the region to have this law or policy in place to make sure that childbirth only takes place under the attendance of skilled professionals. So once again, let us go back to this key question. Mobilizing the local residents, can it really enhance maternal health? Well, I think that it is possible. The CHWs, as well as the community, the HFGC, and the local residents, as long as they're trained, I think that they can take the initiative. If they want safe water, what they would do is they would forge for a policy. There will be views of helping malnutrition patients or children, and they would be asking for support to the policymakers. So if they don't provide them with support, what would they do? They have the votes, and they will just not elect the officials again. So they know that the citizens have prowess here because they hold on to the votes for them for their next term. So I think that this really helps bring about significant change and positive change to the villages, and we have high expectations for this project. So let's bring this all together. These are the three causes behind maternal death. First is to the hospital. If it's delayed, then it can lead to death. Second is about accessibility to the hospital. And even if they came to the hospital, if there's no appropriate treatment, facilities, or equipment or doctors, then this can, of course, be a hindrance to maternal health. What's most difficult is this delay one bottleneck, because the husbands do not want to show their wives to their children, to the doctors, and the mothers-in-law sometimes would say that you don't have to go to the hospital, you can just give birth at home. So the delay one bottleneck actually leads to high maternal deaths. And Good Neighbors International really wants to solve this, and the NGOs want to work with the local community members to stay on site to really conduct these programs and projects to raise their awareness. And these changes and these programs should not be just hollow words, and they're being monitored and assessed as well. The performance measurement or monitoring is done by Ewha Women's University and Korea University, and here at the HFGC, they are going beyond the limits of maternal health, and through the photo voice activities, they're raising awareness. And as well as improving the environment. And the HFGC has led to a stronger sense of ownership, and we've seen more residents contribute to the healthcare situation of the village. And let me skip this slide in the of time. At the end of the day, all of the results were quantified, as you can see here on the slide. But what I want to say is that there's a meaning behind the numbers. There are more outcome and achievements that we are very excited about. Good Neighbors International as an NGO really want to have a positive impact, and we really want to work with the underdeveloped villages and really work with the residents of those communities. These activities of the NGOs, I hope if we can seek your support and interest, that would be great. Thank you very much.
네, 굿네이버스의 이재영.
Yes, thank you very much. That was from Good Neighbors International, Mr. Lee Jae-young, in charge of international healthcare. That was on community development and healthcare projects. Thank you.
네, 잠시 정리하는 동안 있습니다. 지금 네, 아시안 프렌즈. 네.
Yes, up next is Asia Friends. We have Ms. Lee Nam-suk, who is chairwoman of ASEAN Friends, here to present. Good afternoon. My name is Lee Nam-suk, and I'm from ASEAN Friends. I think the order of the presentations have been switched around, thus the delay. So we are a very small NGO, and we were founded in April of 2009, so we are only 11 years old. And we want the neighbors in the Asian region to move away from poverty, and we wish to become friends. And of course, there are many big NGOs and they carry out bigger projects, and what we work with would be the niche market. And so I would like to talk about the major projects of Asian Friends. So first of all, these are the projects that we carried out in Mongolia. Here we have some programs to assist and support the children and the adolescents. There is a small town called Paganoru. It is a coal mining town, and it is 130 kilometers east of Ulaanbaatar, the capital. It has a population of 30,000, and there are many poor people here who are very vulnerable, and they have failed to live a nomad life. And to these people, we are providing necessity items. Basically, it would be school items, food, and medical goods. And also, there are events that we carry out, and we also support BHN to these homes. And as part of a KOICA project in year 2003, we were able to purchase a small apartment building, and we opened this adolescent center in Paganoru. And we have a school running in this area, and the students are divided up. Half of them go to school in the morning, half of them in the afternoon. So in the off time, we would teach English or Korean to these children. And sanitation, arts, and also character building. So these are actually supplementary lessons. And we also provide a nutritious snack to the children. And so we have 4 adolescents who attended our program, and these adolescents went on to college. Next, I would like to talk about the hairdressing vocational school in the same town. Now in Paganoru, we have many single mom families, and we wanted to make it easier for these single moms to get jobs. And we carried out this training on hairdressing in 2017 and 2018. And we taught the practice and theory of hairdressing and also sanitation training, skincare, and makeup. This program has been registered as a formal education program in the country. And we were able to train 110 students, and 91 of them became certified hairdressers. And 72 of them were able to secure jobs. And during the training process, the trainees received 8 workshops, and we gave them opportunities to actually visit hair salons and get practical experience. After this program was completed, up until now, we are giving sewing lessons. And we have many of our projects happening mainly in India. And so next I would like to talk about India. This is a project to support the student and children education in Orucha Chandbara area. There is an area called Orucha, And to 오토룩시아,
50여 가구 200여 명이 거주하는 불가촉 천면마을.
if you travel about 25 minutes to that direction, you reach a village where the untouchables reside.
마을 학교가 운영비가
And there used to be a village school, but it ran out of operation funds and it was no longer open. And so we started to assist the operation fee from November of 2010. And the fund is used to pay the teachers and snacks and school supplies.
정시 학교로
And the state government authorized this school as a formal school, and that was a major achievement.
받아서 교사가
And as a result, there are 2 full-time teachers,
매년
and from 2011, Asian Friends
기자재, 의류, 의약품 등을
send volunteers every winter to provide school supplies
로티아나 마을
and so forth. And also, we opened a new school called Lotiana. And this is a neighboring town of Chandraban and also resided by the untouchables. And this village had no school up until the year 2016, which is very hard to believe because this is the 21st century. And the Chandraban school became a formal school, and the people in Lotuana became aware of this fact. And so they approached us at Asian Nations and wanted us to install a school in their town. And so we registered ourselves as a local NGO and signed an MOU so that we could set up a school. And we went through the preparation steps, and we were finally able to open the school
학교를
on March 6th of 2017.
제공한 벽상 한 개를 지금 이제 사진에서 보면
And actually, we had to repair a chicken coop in order to open this school. However, the villagers welcomed this because they were having a school in their village for the first time in 1,000 years.
약 50여 명이
So there are 50 registered students, and there is one teacher who teaches the 50 students throughout the day. And the school runs from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. from Monday to Saturday, and the subjects that are taught include Hindi, English, math, and etiquette. And this is what the school looks like. We had to, as I said, repair a chicken coop to open the school.
손들어 받는 거 로티아나 빈곤 아동 지원인데요.
Also, we provide assistance to children in poverty in the Chandraban town and the Rotiana town.
교육청에서 정식 교사가 파견됨으로써
We now have a teacher who resides in Chandraban,
하루 한 끼 기초 영양
and we gave assistance so that we could give nutritious snacks 1 time a day to the 70 students in Chandraban. And the program, similar program, started in Lotiana later on.
마을 다 합쳐서 한
And so in total, we're supporting about 130 malnutrition students. We provide biscuits, milk, bananas, oranges, and so forth.
세 번째 저희가 중요한 것은
And this is our 3rd project, which is the Vietnam Scholarship Fund. We are unable to support entire Vietnam, but we support the southern area, which are the rural areas in Vietnam. So it was August in 2011,
트레이닝 성 짱방형 이쪽에 이제 초중고생
and
장학금을 지급한 것을 계기로
we began to give scholarship to schools in the rural areas of Vietnam.
3,580여 명에게
And I counted up the number of students to whom we gave the scholarship, and in total is 3,580. In addition to that, we are carrying out projects to improve the education environment in the schools. And we have installed computer rooms and also libraries in these rural schools. Next is part 3, which is helping Asian children. I have many things to cover here, but I don't think I can go through each of the cases. So I would like to just mention some of our cases. And I would like to briefly explain this case. I would like to introduce a girl to you. Her name is Annelisa.
서울여대 글로벌 서비스 러닝 나눔 여행단에 갔을 때
And our sharing trip volunteers visited this region, and at that time the volunteers found Annelisa. Now the family was too poor, and even though she was quite sick, she could not visit the hospital. And the volunteers were from Seoul Women's University, and a fund was raised to help this girl. And she received a formal diagnosis of frontonasal encephalomenincocele,
그혹 제후 수술을 받았고
and she went through surgery to get rid of this lump. And you can see what has happened after her removal surgery. And then the procedure was followed up with cosmetic surgery.
오지인 그와테 배터리 코트 초등학교라는 곳에 도서실을
And this is the seventh project that I would like to talk about. This is installing of a library in elementary schools in Kohate, Patrikot.
저희 이제 아시안 프렌즈의 또 주요 사업 중의 하나로서는 나눔
And one of our regional programs would be the sharing trip by our volunteers. And so the volunteers go on these sharing trips, and we make visits to very remote areas. And we have continued these trips from year 2009. So it is an ongoing program, and actually the villagers in these regions look forward to us visiting.
참여 인원은 800.
And until now, more than 880 people or volunteers have participated in the sharing trips. Because of time limitations, I cannot go into all the details, and I would like to show you a video of one of our schools.
За. Юуны өмнө Азийн нөхөрлөл төрийн бас байгууллагын хамт олон болон ивент итгэгч байгууллагуудаа баярлалаа гэж хэлье. Тэгээд энэ манай Багнуур дүүрэгт явагдсан энэ өрх толгойсон ээжүүдийг дэмжиж мэрэгчлэлтэй болгож 3 сарын хугацаанд дадлагжуулж бүх боломж болцоо ганц дадлага практик онл гэхгүй бүх хэрэглэх хоол хүнс олон бараа бүтээгдэхүүнээр хангаж багаж хэрэгслээр хангаж биднийг ингэж сургаж өгсөнд баярлалаа гэж хэлье. Тэгээ бүх юм би энэ сургалтыг анх сонсож ирэхдээ болохоор дам нэг хичээсээ сонсож ирсэн л тээ. Тэгээд мэрэгжил боловсралгүй одоо мэрэгжлгүйгээс гадна одоо яг гэртээ дэмий сууж байгаа эцэгчүүдийг ингээд ээж нарыг дэмжиж мэрэгжилтэй болгоод цааш нь ажлын байраар хангаж өгч байгаад нь баяртай байна. Тэгээд энэ сургалтанд сууснаар олон хамт олонтой болсноос гадна энэ сургалтанд бүх боломж болцоод багаж хэрэгсэл олон бараа материалаар хангаж өгч ирсэнд баярлалаа. За сайн байна. За энэ сургалтанд 2018 оны 9 сарын 8-нд орж ирсэн. Тэгээд энэ сургалтыг бол ах нараас бол сонссон. Тэгээд сонсоод ирээд бүртгүүлээд энэ сургалтанд анх суугаад ер нь бол хийх бол мэдсэн. Яг өсчин гэдэг зүйлийг бол юу гэдгийг бол мэдрэхгүй зүгээр өсчин гэдэг аюу хүмүүсийг хараад байхаас биш яг өсчин хүн яг юу хийдэг тэр бүхнийг бол мэдэж авсан их юм сурсан Тэгээ үүгээр бол ер нь бол танил ихтэй болт юм байлаа. Тэгээ мөн яваагүй сумдуудаараа л явсан. Баян дэлгэр мөнгөн морт руу 2 удаа явсан. Баян дэлгэр рүү 1, Архус сум руу 2 удаа явсан байгаа. Тэгээд баян сумдуудаар явж дадлага хийсэн учраас болохоор ер нь илүү хийх сурт юм байлаа. Хүн дээр дадлага хийж сурч шээ. Тэгээ яг энэ сургалтынхаа байран дээр бол сурч дадлага хийхээс илүү тэгж сумдуудаар явахаар илүү тийм хүрээ ихтэй юм байлаа. Тэгээд бидний одоо урд төгсөн төсөлтүүд маань хүмүүс тарьсан байгаа. Түүгээр бол бид хурааж авсан байгаа. Сайн дурын үйл ажиллагаа. Тэгээ ер нь бол энд 3 сарын сурсан хугацаанд бол ихийг сурч авсан мэдсэн. Тэгээ бид нар бол айгүй боломжтой хүн гэж бодож байгаа, боломжийг ашиглаж чадсан гэж бодож байгаа. Өнгөө сурна, өнгөө материалаар хангана. Энэ бүхнийг бол бидэд бол болтохгүй боломж. Энэ боломжинд бол бид ихийг сурч авч чадсан. Тэгээ хоёр багштай бол баярлалаа гэж хэлмээр мөн цагталтаа баярлалаа гэж хэлмээр байна.
Асамын биенгээд 17-18 он нарийн олон улсын хөрөнгө оруулалттай сургалтанд багшаар ажиллалаа. Дадлагын багшаар ажиллаж байгаа хугацаанд олон хүүхэд суралцж олон айлгэр амьдралтаа залгасан гэж бодож байна. Энэ манай багнаар дүүрэгт төсөл явуулсан их олон залуучуудыг тустай амьдралтай болгох гэж бодож байна. Тэгээд загас 7 сургалт явуулсан байгаа. Тэрнээс 95 он суралцсанаас 65 он нийт Улаанбаатар болон Багнуур дүүрэг хөдөө орон нутгууд ажиллаж байгаа гэж байгаа. Энэ сургалтнаас авсан үр дүн мэдээ сайн гарсан гэж бодож байгаа. Одоо тэгээд цааш техник ажилд өндөр юм гэж бодож байна.
들어주셔서 감사합니다.
Thank you very much for your attention.